I got a great female cast today. My first question is actually, if he's watching, to Mayor Giuliani. This is what I want to know. If Paul Manafort was some rogue grifter who was part of the campaign for a very short time, and during that part of the campaign was giving away data, sharing data, making deals with oligarchs, with Russia, that would then help him pay back personal debts, why aren't you furious with him? Why aren't you and President Trump going bad on Paul Manafort, saying he was acting alone? It doesn't make sense to me. Elise. What?
I wonder what is about to drop, because we see Rudy Giuliani emerge and drop these media bombshells right before Robert Mueller announces a big boom, boom, here's what actually happened timeline in an indictment. So it does make me wonder if there is something that Rudy Giuliani is trying to preempt by introducing a new narrative that maybe some on the campaign did it, but Donald Trump, no way.
Okay, but Midwin, if that's the new narrative, Trump didn't do it, but people on the campaign did. Is Rudy Giuliani forgetting who was standing to the right and the left of the president? It was his children and son-in-law, and the other many of the associates who were standing beside him have already turned on the president. That's how this movie goes.
Exactly, and that's how this movie has been going for the past year and a half, ever since Robert Mueller was sort of appointed to do this job. Now, we have to remember that Rudy Giuliani is an attorney. What does that mean? It means that his job is to represent his client zealously, to make his client appear in the best light possible, and to be his spokesperson, to be his advocate. The problem with Rudy Giuliani is he has engaged in this sort of walk-back defense from day one. And all he's done is chip away at President Trump's credibility from day one. The model rules of professional responsibility, which all attorneys are supposed to follow, there's one particular rule that I don't see Giuliani following, and I never saw Cohen follow, which is, and it's one of the shortest rules, which is, in the course of representing a client, a lawyer shall not knowingly make a false statement of material fact or law to a third person. We have seen Giuliani do this on TV all the time. The consequence is no one believes Donald Trump. The consequences,
but that's not true. The Fox News audience believes Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's base believes Donald Trump. So we could sit here and mock Rudy Giuliani all day, but if Rudy Giuliani's job is to protect the president and create chaos, isn't he doing that for the audience that they care about?
But not where it matters, which is in the court of law.
They're not in a court of law. He's on CNN.
But what we do know is that we have Robert Mueller amassing evidence and testimony and documents. And we know he just did a huge drop the other day of about 800 pages to show how Manafort lied to the court. Now, when you remove all the redactions, it comes down to about a stack of papers this thin. But at the end of the day, you have Robert Mueller working in the real world, and you have Rudy Giuliani working in the fake world, which is what he is basically trying to get the base to believe. And the problem is the two things at some point are going to come head to head. At the end of the day, the truth matters. It really does. And unfortunately, what we've seen in the past 2 years is people fudging the truth, people walking back the truth. You know, the reporter who just did the intro, I think, did a phenomenal job in showing just how far we have walked back from day one, beginning with there were no contacts at all with Russians. Now we are, well, okay, I'm just saying that maybe Donald Trump didn't have contacts, but it wasn't legal. Like, they're all over the place. And what happens when you're all over the place with an explanation is you have no credibility.
All right, Kim, does any of this affect Robert Mueller's investigation? Because while Rudy Giuliani has certainly lost all credibility with people possibly at this table, he doesn't care about us at this table. He cares about Trump's base, and they continue to believe him. Where does Robert Mueller fall into this?
Well, it's just, there are two pieces of it. One is if there are crimes being committed. The second is all the lies. I mean, usually people say it's not the underlying action, it's the cover-up. Here, it's both the cover-up and the underlying action. And if we ever get into impeachment land, historically, all of these lies by Trump and his team are relevant to that particular issue. But even on the merits of this question of, okay, collusion or not, there's 16-plus contacts now directly within the campaign to the Russians. We know that. That's public. We also know from filings relating to Mr. Cohen that he spoke to Trump about the Russia Moscow Tower deal during the election. We know that the FBI opened a counterintelligence investigation into Mr. Trump prior to Mr. Mueller coming on board. We know that a federal court has accepted a plea in which, and the Department of Justice has put in writing that Mr. Trump directed his lawyer to commit crimes under the Federal Campaign Finance Act. And we also know that Trump had multiple secret meetings with Mr. Putin, where he kicked people out of the room. He told them to, tear up the notes of the interpreters, and then gets on Air Force One in one instance and dictates a false memo relating to one of the key pivotal moments in this whole narrative, which is a Trump Tower meeting in which his team went to get dirt from the Russians on Hillary Clinton. So anyway, I think what he's doing is trying to play off the confusion and chaos and just tsunami of information relating to a big arc of wrongdoing by this president by just saying, no, we didn't collude. And I think that's easy for people who aren't as steeped as this panel is, and you are, in the details to just cling on to. But the facts are so far from that, and we only know a little bit, right? The reason we know Manafort shared polling data with the Russians is because there was a mistake in a redaction by his lawyers. That was like a little blip, and my guess is there's mountains of information that Mueller has. So I don't think he cares a hoot about what Giuliani has to say.
By Manafort's own lawyers. And again, why isn't Trump and Giuliani turning on Manafort with that news out there? AB, what do you make of Rudy Giuliani's tsunami strategy? Is it helping the president?
Well, his job is to come out and just go on TV. The president made that very clear. He just wants people on TV defending him. And Rudy Giuliani is his TV lawyer. He's not really helping him with some Mueller strategy.
Is he hurting him?
Yes, there are moments when I think that Rudy has made it clear he has thrown his reputation into the ash heap for the history books, and that's unfortunate. It is a strategy, as we've all said, a political strategy in terms of impeachment, just how to continue to convince the base that all of this is BS and doesn't matter anyway, even if people colluded. Collusion is now cool. And that way you keep the senators on board. They still are afraid that once faced with the facts, like the ones you point out about Paul Manafort, who was in touch with the White House, possibly Trump himself, in May of 2018, during all of this, is the fact that senators, when this is all revealed, might look at this and say, I don't care what my voters think of Trump. These are real facts, and that they might abandon the president. This is still the strategy, is to keep senators in the Republican Party on board so that he can't be convicted if he's impeached in the House. I don't know how that's going to go because we don't know what Mueller has. But Rudy Giuliani's job is to go out and barf out word salads. That's his job. And he clearly has made it. He has made it clear to us that he doesn't care about getting his reputation back.
Okay, we got to talk about this Wall Street Journal piece. So the Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump's former fixer, former attorney Michael Cohen, who Trump likes to say barely worked for him as it relates to politics, he paid a technology expert to rig online polls before the presidential election. One was about the president's popularity in terms of running, and the other, a CNBC poll aimed at showing the president to be a bigger business guy than he was. He also paid this technology expert to create a profile, a Twitter profile, Women for Cohen. And I want to share how the bio for this profile. Women who love and support Michael Cohen, strong, pit bull, sex symbol, no nonsense, business oriented, and ready to make a difference. I want to point out,
Pitbull.
I didn't know sex symbol. I thought with the death of Burt Reynolds, sex symbol wasn't even a term used anymore. But alas, it is. The White House hasn't responded to this. What do you make of it?
It's yet another example of what Donald Trump's top advisors are focused on: smoke and mirrors and their own egos. This is a Tinder profile of sorts on Twitter, advertising Michael Cohen's
sex symbol.
Yes,
strong,
sex symbol,
no
pit bull,
nonsense.
Businessman. And that, at the time that you're working in a fairly major role as an advisor to a contender for president of the United States, you still care about Women for Cohen.
But that's even the nonsense portion of it. We're talking about poll rigging. And Michael Cohen has responded. He put out a tweet saying, as for the Wall Street Journal article on poll rigging, what I did was at the direction of and for the sole benefit of Donald Trump, I truly regret my blind loyalty to a man who doesn't deserve it. Kim, what do you make of this?
I mean, I think
He's
that
not denying it. Poll rigging.
Yeah, poll rigging. That's astonishing, right? And it's also in keeping with the narrative that is being building publicly about Russians rigging the election. That's established by the national security team in the government. But number two, that the Trump team was part of that. I mean, people talk about collusion and say collusion is not a crime. It's true. It would matter for purposes of impeachment. And so we've got now we know by mistake that Manafort was feeding data to the Russians, very specific data. So think about this. You know, we want to basically have African Americans in Ohio not vote for Clinton. So let's send this to the Russians, use this data to focus on those people, put stuff in their computers and in their feeds so they don't vote. We've got that, right? And in addition, you have the president's fixer and now lawyer coming out and saying that he was rigging, also taking steps to rig poll data. I mean, if this were a TV after-school special, I think at some point we'd turn it off because it seems so insane it could never happen, and it's unfolding before our eyes right now. I think February 7th, when Michael Cohen comes out and tells his story and weaves all of this stuff together in a way that makes sense to people, this is what I did and this is why, I think the public consciousness or unconsciousness about whether this matters could shift, because it's going to make sense to them on a human level what this man's story was.
We do have to put the circus nature and the humor of it aside, the ridiculousness and the seriousness of poll rigging for a moment. And I want to take you back to what the president, remember, he was the one who was constantly haranguing, as Louise Ruhle would say, about poll rigging, poll rigging, poll rigging. Take a look.
When the people who control the political power in our society can rig investigations like her investigation was rigged, can rig polls, you see these phony polls, and rig the media, they can wield absolute power over your life, your economy, and your country, and benefit big time by it.
He knows, because it appears his team was trying to do that.
Absolutely. You know, Donald Trump is a master at projecting. Just about everything he complains about from the time he decided to run to now is something that he himself or someone in his administration has done. I mean, to be complaining about poll rigging and then to find out that, according to Michael Cohen, we don't know if this is true yet, that he directed Michael Cohen to do this poll rigging. Bingo, he's done that. To claiming that Hillary Clinton was somehow in cahoots with Goldman Sachs. Remember the hoopla about the speeches and, you know, published the speeches. And why? Because what did he do? He came in and instead of saying he's going to drain the swamp, he filled the swamp with all kinds of shady grifter type characters. So we have seen this, you know, time and time again with Donald Trump. And again, I can't even quite understand, and it boggles the mind that we are here in this country, that in the United States of America, we have a president that is saying and doing these things. Zero credibility. It's the one word that I can say about Donald Trump.
But alas,
no credibility.
We do. I will definitely be paying attention when Michael Cohen speaks. The one thing I keep wanting to ask him, he didn't get drafted. He didn't get forced to do that job. You chose to do it. And the women for Cohen support you in doing so. Amazing. Pitbull, sex symbol.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.